Welcome into, is this 8? 7?
7?
8?
It's been a few.
It's a lot. But we're excited to be here once again, bringing you some primetime preps. Brad Caldwell and Bill Harshaw here, talking all things high school sports related. We haven't quite moved into basketball just yet, but we're not very far from it as we get ready to endeavor today, though, into all things high school football playoffs.
And there's a lot of things going on high school football-wise. If you've been watching football, at least this last week, there's been some big games that we can talk about.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And we've had play-in weeks for the smaller schools, and now everybody is back to where they should be, I guess, is the best way to put it, where you've got 32 teams left in the 4A and I believe the 3A. 2A started with less because of 8-man football. Then, of course, your 6A and 7A classes, they let everybody in the playoffs this year, and they're down to 8. And 5A is down to 16, where they usually start from. So, here we are. We've got a clean slate ready to go. Got lots of football to talk about this week. We want to say, first off, though, go like the Arkansas Sports Network on Facebook. Also, hit that line on ESPN Arkansas. Hit that line. You can go like that on Facebook as well. Also, make sure to give us a review on our podcast. Give us 5 stars. If you've got anything less than that, don't do it. Just don't do it. Give us 5
Thanks,
stars.
No,
exactly. Give us 5 stars and let everybody know that you have listened to Primetime Preps on all the various platforms. And, man, Bill, I'm ready to get into this thing.
Let's get into it. In 7A action last week, we had a pretty good game. Springdale Harbor over Fort Smith Northside, 49-28. Some would have thought that Northside had a pretty good chance to win that game. Took it on the nose.
Yeah, coming out of the Central there, you would think that Central being the stronger of the conferences right now, that they would be they would have had a chance to beat Harbor, but that was not the case. As Harbor was able to win 49-28. Harbor has been a traditional power out of the 7A West, played for state championships. I think they might have even won one. Coach Chris Wood there, Gus Malzahn-ite, guy that has worked with Coach Malzahn through the years, has done a great job there at Harbor. Little Rock Central and Fayetteville is one that we want to hit on because of the ending. And, man, I just want to say, before we even get into the ending, we had a little bit of a situation with that ending that made national headlines, and that was, if you didn't know, the Fayetteville had the ball, winding the clock down, and they were downing the ball, but the play clock and the time clock were not in sync, and Fayetteville actually downed the ball with 2 seconds to go, which obviously when you do that, there's a stoppage in play. Turnover on downs. And so it gave Little Rock Central a chance to line up their field goal unit because they were on Fayetteville's end. And I'm not even sure exactly how long the field goal was, but it was kind of a chip shot. And Little Rock Central was able to make the field goal, win the game. But one of the reasons why I'm bringing this up is it actually made Monday Night Countdown last night on ESPN with Randy Moss's "Come On Man," and I thought, man, that's kind of Bush League if you really want to know the truth, that you're calling out a high school kid and a high school team in the playoffs. Yeah, it was a gaffe, no doubt about it, but at the same time, we're talking about high school amateur athletes, no pay, no scholarships, no anything, just playing for the love of the game, and kid gets called out on national television.
And, I don't have a problem with you talking about that game. If you want to talk about how it ended and mention the fact that, hey, the football was down with, a few seconds left on the clock and you could have even ran a play, and you talk about how that game ended, that's fine. But when you come out and name a high school student and pretty much throw that student under the bus on national television, there's a problem with that in my eyes.
I agree. It was very Bush League by ESPN. Nobody's asking me from ESPN what I thought, but I felt like that was pretty Bush League. For them to call out, Fayetteville and their quarterback, and it was just really wasn't good. I do like, and Bladen Fike is the kid's name. I do like that Coach Casey Dick came out and he took full responsibility for that, and he called out ESPN about it himself and just said, hey, look, again, the whole premise is these are still kids. They're not getting paid. There are no scholarships involved. I mean, college kids, I use that term loosely, but when you're talking about high school, they're still kids, and they haven't left the home yet. I felt like it was pretty humiliating, and unfortunately for Fayetteville, they weren't able to pull it out. Little Rock Central ended up winning the ball game, moving on into the playoffs, but it was just an unfortunate situation all the way around for Mr. Fike and Coach Dick and the whole crew there at Fayetteville.
Without a doubt. And, one of the things that we've mentioned, especially a few weeks back, was the proverbial hot seat that Casey Dick was on at Fayetteville. People in Fayetteville expect results, so they want results now. And this made that seat a little warmer. I remember looking at Twitter right after that game when I saw it. And, there were a lot of people that were already calling for the coach's head. And, it's a time management thing. But, it's ultimately, as a head coach, how can you stop that?
Right.
It's not really something that he could have been on the field to prevent other than, on the sideline being like, hey, make sure we don't.
Yeah, exactly. But when pressure's on and you're talking about kids and pressure, they're not used to dealing with that kind of pressure in life. Think weird stuff happens. It does in high school all the time. That's why we love sports to begin with, because they're unpredictable. If they were predictable, it wouldn't be as fun. No, and so high school sports, Leland Barclay said it best last week when he said it's the purest form of high-level competition high school sports are. And so, anyway, we have to I feel like we have to give some of these kids a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because, again, they just are not – they're not acclimated to life. Criticize a guy like me who's almost 40 years old for making that same thing.
Criticize Casey Dick. He's a grown man in a position of authority. So, certainly could do that, but don't throw the kid.
Yeah, exactly, especially on national television. It was just crazy. Moving on here, 6A. Van Buren pulled off a huge win at Jonesboro, and Van Buren, I think one of the reasons we're talking about this is Van Buren was the 7th seed out of the West. And the West really was just dominant this week. West actually went 5-2 on the field, 5-3 if you consider the forfeit there that Benton took. But Van Buren with 37-14 victory. One game that I picked Pine Bluff over Mountain Home. But Mr. Bryce McKay, man, he's tough. He's tough to deal with down there. And Pine Bluff ended up taking it one at home on the chin. I guarantee you, man, if you looked back at this, you'd tell me a couple years back that Mountain Home was going to go to Pine Bluff and
right?
win. I would have said, you're crazy. The's no possible way. But what a turnaround it has been for Mountain Home.
It's a tough place to play down in Pine Bluff. It's a long drive for Mountain Home. But Bryce McKay and his crew took care of business against Pine Bluff Friday night. Also a win that was relatively expected. Lake Hamilton 49 over at Sheridan 36. It was a tighter game than what I expected.
Yeah, it was, but Lake Hamilton has defensively not as strong, but offensively they're going to score some points. They're going to put up some yardage. You've got to prepare for that style of offense. They keep most of it on the ground, very little passing. They still run. I believe they run the wing T, if I'm not mistaken, or it's the wishbone. But
I love me some wishbone.
I'm telling you, man, they keep it on the ground, and that's hard to prepare for. The pendulum has swung the way, everybody runs a spread now. Everybody runs RPOs now. And then when you have a team like Lake Hamilton or Pottsville, we call Pottsville games. We're going to talk about them. It's a little bit hard to prepare for an offense like that where, 20 years ago you wouldn't say that. It would have been the spread and, all that Gus Malzahn stuff that he brought into high school football. That would have been the hard thing to prepare for, but now it's the other way around. It's the ground and pound.
It really is, and that's one of the things that I find interesting is that there was a time when you would go up against a team and it's like, whoa, these guys run the spread. We're not too used to seeing that, and now it's flipped to where you're looking at Rivercrest, for example, who's taking on a Pottsville team that runs the dead T, and Rivercrest hasn't seen that style of offense all season long, and that's what's kind of weird is you're used to seeing 10 years ago you would be used to seeing those types of offenses day in and day out, and now they're kind of rare, but I believe they are starting to make a comeback.
Moving on into the 5A, Magnolia, we're going to have Coach King on with us here. Magnolia is a team that doesn't get a lot of respect, but they won 55-21. Really, Magnolia's lost to Harrison by a score earlier this year at the, I think, very first game of the year. And then had some COVID issues, lost to Camden Fairview. Other than that, haven't lost all year long. Had a very good year in the South. Ended up finishing the number 2 seed out of the South because of COVID. So, anyway, with that said, they won 55-21 over Pea Ridge.
Also, another big game, Maumelle, who I think is also a little on the underrated side. Maumelle taking on Nettleton, winning 19-7.
Yes. Texarkana, if I'm not mistaken, were they the 1 seed? I believe they were. They were the 1 seed out of the South. Yeah. Almost lost to Alma, the 8 seed out of the West this year. Alma's in a very unfamiliar position, being the 8 seed coming out of the West. I mean, Alma, even 10, 15 years ago was a team that was playing for state championships in the semifinals almost every year. They have definitely had a downturn, but almost pulled the upset over Texarkana. Speaking of the West, Valonia beat Watson Chapel, and that was one of our primetime picks. I took Watson Chapel, Jabray Shaw, that crew. Yep. Valonia said they must have heard it. They must have put it on their bulletin board or something.
They must have done something. I'm looking at this score going, wow, Valonia hung 60 on Watson Chapel. They figured out an answer for Jabray Shaw. And, I thought that Valonia would play a good game. I did expect them to win, but I certainly didn't expect that margin of victory.
One of the games that really sticks out to me is Clarksville beating Greene County Tech. Clarksville's the 7 seed out of the West, and a team that we've seen over this year. And, again, when you talk about the West and how tough it is, Clarksville being the 7 seed out of the West is nothing to shake a stick at. I'm going to tell you, that's a physical team. They've got good athletes. I knew they were going to give Greene County Tech problems. Unfortunately for Clarksville, the next one they got is Little Rock Christian. Yeah, that's going to be a tough one. But again, you're going to talk about an offense that you're not used to seeing. They run the old single wing, and they beat Greene County Tech. I think the 2 seed out of the East, 21-20.
There you have it. So in Class 4A, we also have Hamburg, and this is one of those where you look at the score and you go, wow, that's almost a basketball score. Hamburg beat Jonesboro Westside 76-47.
Yeah, basketball blowout.
Right.
Arkadelphia 42-20 over Star City. Arkadelphia 7-1 now on the season, but played the play-in game because of COVID issues. They've lost 1 game. Star City, poor Star City, man. They're like, hey, we get a home game. Oh, we get Arkadelphia. And so now Mina's in that same boat now, where Mina won the 4A4, and now they get to host Arkadelphia coming out of the play-in game, which is we're technically still in the first round of the playoffs. Pottsville, we were at that ball game, 32-12 victory over Fountain Lake. Pottsville moves on to take on Keyshawn Scott and the crew over there at Rivercrest.
Yeah, and that Rivercrest crew is a big-time team. I mean, listen, you have Cam Turner, who is the top passer, I believe, in the state. Or second.
He's overall second. Total yardage.
Total yardage number 1. Yeah.
Number 1, yeah.
There it is. Total yardage number 1, second top passer in the state. And if you want to look at the ground averages, this kid is the 22nd, but have more numbers, 22nd in the state for max preps.
Yes.
On the ground. And then you look at his opponent, or his teammate, Keyshawn Scott. He's the number 1 receiver in the state. So they have a great chemistry going on between those two, and Pottsville's going to see the brunt of it this week.
Moving on into Class 3A, Hackett takes on Mountain View. Hackett takes down Mountain View 38-20. Lake Village beat Walnut Ridge 21-14. Corny over Arkansas Baptist or Baptist Prep, now 58-28.
In Class 2A, we had Junction City defeating Marked Tree, and that was 38-0. So a pretty big game for Junction City, who's a traditional powerhouse year in and year out. They're going to continue to roll here in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah, and you don't want to see the Dragons coming your way when it comes to the playoffs for sure. Finally, Carlisle scores 72 and beats Mineral Springs 72-50, another basketball type of score. Man, big-time win there by Carlisle. Carlisle kind of bouncing back from a couple down years, ended up moving on into the second round.
And what's interesting about that is when you, as Mineral Springs, when you put on 50 in the playoffs, whether it's a play-in game or not, when you hang 50 on an opponent, you would expect to win that game.
Right.
But that didn't happen here, as Carlisle able to come out on top 72 to 50. So what a game by Carlisle.
We'd like to remind you that open enrollment for Medicare is October 15th through December the 7th. Call Giroux and Associates for help with your Medicare plan. There are several new plans available for 2021. Giroux and Associates has agents all across the state of Arkansas who specialize in helping you with your Medicare needs. Call Mike Giroux at 1-888-360-8611 to schedule an appointment. And we'll be back on the Giroux hotline with more primetime preps as we have Coach King from Magnolia, and we have Keylon Cole coming back with us here, quarterback at Harrison.
Cole
Keylon, yes. We'll get it right. We'll be back with more primetime preps right after this.
Here, in the heart of the River Valley, is St. Mary's Regional Health System. Here is the area's most comprehensive range of medical services, along with advanced treatment options and responsive emergency care. Here is our team of more than 900 professionals who bring healthcare to life through people caring for people. And it is here where you can count on St. Mary's to always be, because to us, community matters. For more than 90 years, our investment in our community has been unmatched. And today, that couldn't be stronger. St. Mary's, we're here for you.
Enrollment for Medicare is October the 15th through December the 7th. Call Giroux and Associates for help with your Medicare plan. There are several new plans available for 2021. Giroux and Associates has agents all across the state of Arkansas who specialize in helping you with your Medicare needs. Protect your most valuable asset, yourself. Call Mike Giroux at 888-360-8611 to schedule an appointment today.
Joining us on the Giroux and Associates hotline is Harrison Golden Goblin quarterback Cole Keylon. Cole, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me.
Well, man, just want to start off by let's talk about just your accolades here. First off, you have thrown for 2,200 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 6 picks, which I know you probably don't want to talk about that very much, but almost 1,000 yards rushing and 14 touchdowns. Man, you have put the ball in the end zone this year for the Golden Goblins.
Yes, sir. It was just starting off the year, we didn't know if we'd be a pass-heavy or run-heavy team, and we just found our balance about halfway through the year, and we just rode off that. We had some big games that produced a lot of those touchdowns. So we just got in our roll, and yardage kept going up, touchdowns kept going up.
Now, this is your first year as a starting quarterback, right?
Yes, sir.
And what did you learn in the years prior to this about playing quarterback?
Sophomore year, the speed's a lot different going from junior high to high school, and just learned that not every play can be a touchdown. You got to play for the next play, can't turn the ball over. And then junior year, just continued with that, getting adjusted to the speed, and then prepared me for this year, senior year, which has been awesome so far.
And you guys have had a great run. I mean, the last 2 or 3 years, I guess 3 years, you guys have been in the thick of, I mean, you guys were almost beat PA a couple years back at your place. And then last year, not quite as close of a game, but still you guys have been 5A West champs for the last 3 years. What do you attribute that to up there at Harrison?
Well, we weren't the greatest program before Coach Wells came in. I believe this is Coach Wells' 5th year here. And the past 3 years, we are 32-3. Our record's 32-3. So we've just built a winning program. We've built, I mean, all these seniors know is winning basically, because we've averaged 1 loss a season. And I mean, we like to not lose one and take a state championship right here. But I mean, just to have the confidence to win, we produce a lot of wins.
You have also won an award for your academics, so you're a smart kid as well. 4.01 GPA. Tell us a little bit about your academics, and you were one of the Scholar Athlete of the Week for Hootens, correct?
Yes, sir. So, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of school. I like football a lot more, but my dad, he's the main contributor to that. He pushes me every day to be the best I can be in anything I do. So he's a big contributor to that GPA.
He just pushes you as hard as he can push you, right?
Yes, sir.
And he pushes you on the field as well?
Yes, sir. I mean, especially during quarantine, it was just me and him at home, and it was just me and him working out all the time. So it pushed me a lot then too.
How have you guys navigated this whole COVID thing and the season? I know it's been an odd season comparatively.
Well, we haven't had a lot of problems. We've been wearing our mask, social distancing outside of football, outside of school, and Coach Wells told us, I believe we were one of 6 teams in the state that got to play all 10 regular season games. So it hasn't affected us too much, but still, it's kind of a burden.
Yeah, it for sure is. All right, so you guys got Camden Fairview coming up on Friday night. What are you looking at in that game on Friday night?
I mean, they're a big, strong, athletic team. Their strengths are our weaknesses, big and strong, and we're fast. They're fast, but I mean, we normally outcoach every team we play, and we just play hard in every team we play. So we expect to win. Who
are some of the guys that you like to throw the ball to? Who do you guys get the ball to on offense there at Harrison?
A senior receiver, Noah Moix. He has, I think, 13 touchdowns through 10 games, and he's averaging like 27 yards a catch, something crazy like that. So he's a go-to guy. And then we have guys like Lane Johnson and Dylan Block who are also receivers, and they put up good numbers like that too. It's just Noah gets the majority of it.
And I know you got to have some sort of defense there to be as successful as you are. Who are the guys that make it go on the Goblin defense?
Well, our secondary is really, really good. We've had a little trouble stopping the run this year, but we're getting a lot better. And our main defensive contributors we have a sophomore safety named Beck Jones, and then junior safety Dylan Block, and good inside backer Trey Richardson, who's a senior.
I gotcha. Well, Cole, man, we're going to be looking forward to seeing how Harrison performs this week and on into the playoffs. And we're going to keep up with what you are doing personally on the field.
Yes, sir.
All right. That is Cole Keylon joining us here on the Darion Associates hotline as Harrison gets ready to take on the Camden Fairview Cardinals. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Here, in the heart of the River Valley, is St. Mary's Regional Health System. Here is the area's most comprehensive range of medical services, along with advanced treatment options and responsive emergency care. Here is our team of more than 900 professionals who bring healthcare to life through people caring for people. And it is here where you can count on St. Mary's to always be, because to us, community matters. For more than 90 years, our investment in our community has been unmatched, and today that couldn't be stronger. St. Mary's, we're here for you.
Open enrollment for Medicare is October the 15th through December the 7th. Call Giroux & Associates for help with your Medicare plan. There are several new plans available for 2021. Giroux & Associates has agents all across the state of Arkansas who specialize in helping you with your Medicare needs. Protect your most valuable asset, yourself. Call Mike Giroux at 888-360-8611 to schedule an appointment today.
Joining us here on Primetime Preps on the Giroux & Associates hotline, we've got Coach Mark King of Magnolia. Coach, thanks for joining us.
Hey, I appreciate you having me.
All right, Coach. So I want you to tell the listeners here or the watchers, because we actually have both. Tell us a little bit about your team, as if somebody wouldn't have even known Magnolia existed.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're relatively a young team. We got a lot of sophomores playing for us this year. We've had a great season so far. I think we're 7-2. Got the number 2 seed out of our conference, which I think is one of the toughest conferences in the state. We're like everybody else. We've, had the COVID issues, bounced around with that, lost a couple of games, and we've had several weeks. We've had kids out. We've had very few games where we've had everybody healthy, I guess, like everybody else in the state has. But, my second year here, the kids have bought into the system. They're working extremely hard. We got a great staff. Got a relatively all-new coaching staff this year, basically, other than me. I think there were 3 coaches left over from last year. We got a whole new coaching staff. Left over from last year was me, my defense coordinator, Wes Abels, and one of my D-line coaches, Mike Odell. Other than that, everybody's new, which I think was kind of good. Got a fresh start, some new faces for kids. And, we're just down here tucked away in southwest Arkansas. Not many people get down here. You got to be coming here to get here. But no, we're just a 5A football school, playing in a tough conference and, looking to make our way in the state playoffs.
I hear they got some good barbecue down there now.
Tell you what, there's several good things. Good barbecue during, in the springtime. Got great crawfish, all kinds of good stuff down here in Magnolia. You got one of the world's best steak festivals, world's championship steak cook-off down here. There's all kinds of stuff going on down in Magnolia throughout the year.
Now, see, that's why people should come to Magnolia. See,
you bet. Oh, you bet.
We just sold it. We should be part of the Chamber of Commerce, right?
That's right. They ought to, give you a complimentary membership to that thing.
There you go. Well, all right. So, you are 7-2. You got you've had a little bit of a COVID issue. I think it ended up costing you a place in the final standings. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, we ended up because of COVID issues. We ended up number 2 seed, but we were on a roll after our first 4 games. We were 3-1. Come off a big win against Little Rock Central. I mean, not Little Rock Central, but Little Rock Christian, and we're getting ready to play Arkansas High, and we get shut down for 2 weeks. The whole team gets quarantined. For 2 weeks and couldn't practice, couldn't meet, do anything. When we came back, we had to play Camden Fairview, which is another extremely talented, tough team in our conference. And I still had 9 starters out that week, when we played them. But we needed to play. We couldn't take 3 weeks off. And, we hung with them for a little bit and had 4 turnovers in the second half, ended up losing that game. And but I think it was a character building deal for us too, going through that and playing without the starters. A lot of our young kids got a lot of playing time. But COVID cost us, I thought we had a good enough team to win the conference championship if we play a regular season. And, but again, everybody in the state's going through it. There's no sense crying about it. And, we are where we are. And, we got Greenbrier this week, but, we've had a good season so far. Our kids have responded well. They're pretty resilient.
So tell us a little bit about your kids and who's standing out for you this year.
I tell you what, our defense has played outstanding. First couple of weeks, we made some changes, gave up a few points those first couple of weeks, but since then, everybody in our defense has played lights out, especially our front 7. We got kids, like Mike Jones, one of our defensive tackles. Cameron Zachary is another defensive lineman for us. Has played outstanding all year long. Sean Bell, the senior linebacker for us, once we got him rolling and healthy off some early season injuries, or actually some summer injuries. We've got a great secondary with Jakeem Warren, Robert Mack, Marcus Harper makes big plays for us on the defensive side of the ball, that outside linebacker. And we've got several kids on that side of the ball that are just playing extremely well. And like I said, the last 3 weeks, our starting defense hadn't given up a point. And they're having fun. They're flying to the football. Offensively, we're a triple option team. We run the flex bone triple option. Darion Curry, a sophomore running back, has had an outstanding year. I think he's almost to about 1,100 yards in 9 games. 18 touchdowns. He's having a big year for us. Our quarterback, Daley Blanchard, is another sophomore. He's having a big year for us. Directing that triple option offense up front. Again, we got Mike Jones, plays both sides of the ball for us. He's a leader up front for us on offense. D. Ray Williams, our big fullback, he's had a big year. And that's the beauty of this offense. You can't really key on one. It's not like the eye or something where you can key on one back. If you try to key on one person, somebody else is going to come up and bite you. And, with everybody running the spread these days, people don't see the option much and try to work on it in 3 or 4 days. It's kind of tough, which gives us an advantage most of the time.
Yeah. Actually, we've talked about that quite a bit here on the show, that just exactly what you said about everybody does run the spread. Everybody throws the ball now, where, 20 years ago, it was everybody ran the ball. Everybody ran a flex bone. Everybody ran a wing tee. So when you get an offense like yours, it is really tough to stop.
Well, it is, and especially if we're doing what we're supposed to do and not turning the ball over. We kind of take what the defense gives us, and against well-coached defenses, when we know what they're going to do, we use that against them. If we know a guy's going to be squeezing, or they're going to be squeezing and scraping, and we use what they do best against them, and gives us an advantage. And but it never fails. If somebody's a 4-3 defense, when they play us, they change. If they're 3-4, when they play us, they change. We never get anybody's defense that we see on film. And, I guess everybody thinks they got to go to something different to try to stop the triple option, or, go to trick defenses, or, crazy formations or something. And, we just do what we do. And, we're old school. We can throw it. I mean, we've had a couple of games where we've thrown for a couple of 100 yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns, but not, that's not our norm.
I gotcha. All right, so you guys have Greenbrier coming up, tough team out of the West. You guys have the common opponent of Harrison. Pretty similar games on both ends. They played Harrison really tight. You guys played Harrison the very first game really tight. Tell us a little bit of what you know about Greenbrier.
Well, I'll tell you what, Coach Tribble does a great job up there. They're very well coached. That's the first thing you see. Defensively, they're going to be where they're supposed to be. They tackle well. They fly to the football. Offensively up front, they're huge. I mean, they have big offensive linemen. They have a zone concept, and they're going to run the inside and outside zone, the counters. But they do it all out of a spread formation. They can throw the ball too. They got a good quarterback. They're going to be a tough team to beat. And we do have the common opponent in Harrison, and both of them played them close. And I think in that game, that first game, we got beat by 7 and had 5 turnovers in that game. But we know the West is a very tough conference, and they do things right up there. And probably the only advantage that we'll have is athleticism. But other than that, they've got the size and strength advantage on us. And we're going to have to play great defense and stop that zone run game of theirs to have a chance.
All right, Coach, man, we really appreciate you joining us here on the Darion Associates Hotline. And man, we're going to be watching, see what you guys do here in the next week or two.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks a lot. That's Coach Mark King of Magnolia joining us here on the Darion Associates Hotline, and we'll be back with more Primetime Preps right after this.
Here, in the heart of the River Valley, is St. Mary's Regional Health System. Here is the area's most comprehensive range of medical services, along with advanced treatment options and responsive emergency care. Here is our team of more than 900 professionals who bring healthcare to life through people caring for people. And it is here where you can count on St. Mary's to always be, because to us, community matters. For more than 90 years, our investment in our community has been unmatched, and today that couldn't be stronger. St. Mary's, we're here for you.
Enrollment for Medicare is October the 15th through December the 7th. Call Giroux & Associates for help with your Medicare plan. There are several new plans available for 2021. Giroux & Associates has agents all across the state of Arkansas who specialize in helping you with your Medicare needs. Protect your most valuable asset, yourself. Call Mike Giroux at 888-360-8611 to schedule an appointment today.
Welcome to the last segment, the final segment in this home,
The fun segment.
in this studio of Primetime Preps, as Bill is moving.
Yeah.
And Bill, you sold your house, right?
I did. I sold my house. We had this house on the market for several months, and you just kind of didn't. I had a couple of hits and misses. No really offers on it. We took it off the market for about a month and finished up a little bit of work on it, and then got in touch with a new realtor. We got in touch with Wes Freeman from River Valley Realty here in Russellville, and put it on the market. And literally, Brad, within one day, within 24 hours, we had an offer on this house. So Wes Freeman able to get things done for us. And I encourage anybody looking to sell their home or even looking to buy a home, Wes Freeman will take care of you. He's been able to show us homes and say, well, this is something you might be concerned about. This is something you may enjoy. And really done a really great job of kind of pinpointing, what we were looking for in a home. And we can get in touch with River Valley Realty and Wes Freeman at 479-264-7472. And I just can't toot Wes Freeman's horn loud enough getting us out of this house.
Wes is a great guy. He'll take care of you. And you know what? He didn't pay for that advertisement. This is just out of the goodness of Bill's heart.
That's it. I just wanted to tell everybody that the good job that Wes has done. And, it didn't matter. I mean, I could pick up my phone right now and be like, hey, Wes. And he's going to answer that call. And so he's taking care of us.
So anytime you have any kind of house issues like that, you've got a realtor that will be there for you. It is definitely great. And so we know that Wes here in the River Valley area can help you out. So if you're in the market here in the River Valley area, call Wes Freeman at 264-7472. Moving on here, Mark King, man, what an awesome interview he was of Magnolia. Just a fun guy to talk to, and, man, he's got a great team down there.
He really does. I was looking and listening to that interview, and, he said a lot of things that we had kind of talked about over the course of the season as far as, who runs what style of offenses these days. And he kind of confirmed a lot of the things that we've been talking about.
Yeah, he did. I mean, we actually mentioned in the first segment, it's very similar to what he had said about, teams are now having trouble preparing for teams that are on the ground because everybody throws the ball and everybody runs RPOs. And, we've talked about it ad nauseum that really offenses really look kind of the same now, different variations of the spread, that sort of thing. So it is kind of nice to see different styles of offense, and Magnolia runs one down there. And, man, Coach King, he was a lot of fun. And I'm going to tell you what, he knows something about food down there.
They so got me sold. Yeah. Let's go. I mean,
let's go to Magnolia. Let's figure it out, man.
Let's get some of that barbecue.
Well,
and that's another thing that he mentioned in that interview is, the X's and O's, when it comes to running into a type of offense, whether it be a running or a passing attack, regardless of the offense, how the defense has to respond to that. Yes. And I love talking about those X's and O's.
Oh, yeah. He brought us into the film room there at Magnolia. Let's start out with the playoffs, and let's start out with 7A as we are moved into the quarterfinal round of the 7A. And, we've talked a little bit about the Bentonville and Bryant matchup. Everybody is kind of looking forward to a possibility of that one, although North Little Rock's going to have something to say. Little Rock Central and Conway both are going to have something to say. But I tell you what, this Cabot team, they're no slouch. They're going to go up there and be ready to play Bentonville this week.
I think you absolutely nailed it on the head with Cabot not being a slouch. They've lost 3 games. They're 7-3 on the season, ranked number 5 in the state by Hootens Arkansas football. And you look at the losses that Cabot has endured, and they were the number 1 Bryant, lost to Bryant handedly, 42-14. Had a relatively close one with number 3 North Little Rock, where the Charging Wildcats defeated them 48-31. And then we just mentioned number 4 Conway and the Wampus Cats able to defeat Cabot in a come-from-behind victory, 52-49.
And, that was probably the game of the year so far this year, Conway versus Cabot, 52-49. That game there. In moving on to the 7A, you've got Little Rock Catholic and North Little Rock playing each other. North Little Rock is one of those teams that they got beat by Bryant, but that's the only team that they've been defeated by.
And they've looked really, really good in a lot of their other games. North Little Rock is a very well-coached ball team. When I was on their sideline during that Bryant game, you could see how that coach was able to motivate that team to play, and I fully expect them to have them on their toes for North Little Rock, or Little Rock Catholic, I should say.
All right, moving on to the 6A, we've got Little Rock Parkview and Sylvan Hills. That is our game of the week. We're going to pick that here in just a few minutes. But we're going to move on to El Dorado and Lake Hamilton. And Lake Hamilton is a team that runs a similar style offense to what we just talked about at Magnolia. And El Dorado started off 0-3, but they've won 5 out of their last 6.
El Dorado's been one of those teams that's faced a lot of adversity when it comes to COVID and sickness. Haven't really played. They're showing 9 games on their schedule, but when you look at who has played in those games, they have had some kids that haven't been able to play. But Lake Hamilton, they're coming in 9-1 on the season, and they are in a very, very tough conference, so that speaks volumes to me.
Yeah, only lost to Greenwood, and other games in that bracket. You've got Greenwood and Mountain Home. We've talked about Bryce McKay ad nauseum. Of course, Greenwood is Greenwood, and that's going to be a tall task for the Bombers. Bombers have had a great season, though, and a really good turnaround season there in Mountain Home. And then, of course, Van Buren and Marion. Van Buren upset Jonesboro. I say they upset them. I think they were actually the favorite by Hootens.com. But they were the 7 seed coming out of the West versus the 2 seed in the East. And then Marion moved on and advanced because Benton had a COVID-related issue. So now Marion gets a chance to move on to the semifinals, where they'll take on the winner of Greenwood and Mountain Home, and then Sylvan Hills and Parkview. Like we said, we're going to get to that. That's a unbelievable quarterfinal matchup. Moving on to the 5A, we have got Maumelle and Wynn. We're going to talk a little bit about that one here in a minute, but we just got done talking to Mark King, Magnolia and Greenbrier. What a matchup this is, Bill.
Big matchup. Magnolia's first-team defense has been lights out stellar. When you have the first team in and you can count on those number 1 guys to not give up a single point in the past 3 games combined. Now, they did give up, I want to say 24 in 4 weeks ago, or 21 points 4 weeks ago. But that top string defense is definitely an outstanding bunch of guys. And they are the leaders of this Magnolia team. And then you flip it over, as Coach King described, that flex bone offense, that's always going to be tough to defend when you're looking at a triple option.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And Magnolia is going to have a bunch of athletes they're going to be able to put on the field. I should have asked him about Darion Ford. Why couldn't get Darion Ford to come out and play football? That's, if you don't know, Darion Ford is a kid that is a possible McDonald's All-American down at Magnolia, the 2-time defending state champions in basketball. He come up his freshman year and was the state finals MVP in basketball. And we're going to try to get a chance to talk to him sometime down the road. Moving on into 5A here, we've got number 3, Texarkana and Morrilton. That's a sneaky good game there. Man, I tell you, coming to Morrilton, Texarkana is going to have their hands full with the Devil Dogs.
Yeah, they will. The Devil Dogs are a very, very tough football team. But, we were talking earlier, Brad, and Morrilton is traditionally known for winning at least 1 game in the playoffs that, a lot of people would kind of scratch their head and say, why is Morrilton winning that game? This is one of them that we could see them winning, and you look at Texarkana saying, well, they're only 6-0. They're undefeated, but they're only second in the 5A South Conference because of those victories that were, or the games that didn't play, really, where we've seen that on a numerous number of teams where they were undefeated and may have had, quote-unquote, the conference championship, but was not given a higher preference seed because they didn't play the same number of games.
And one game they did not play was Magnolia. And look, Alma just about beat Texarkana this last weekend. So I really like Morrilton's chances. We'll talk about that one in a little bit here with our primetime picks. Camden Fairview traveling to Harrison. That's a long drive there. I think Camden Fairview are going to have their hands full with the Golden Goblins. Just got done talking to Cole Keylon, the quarterback at Harrison, who is phenomenal this year. Over 2,200 yards passing, almost 1,000 yards rushing, and 150,000 touchdowns.
Right. And the thing that's really impressed me, you have those great statistics out there for Keylon, but the really cool thing that I like about it is his GPA. I mean, 4.05, I believe he said, or 4.1, depending on you look at it. But very, very intelligent athlete, and that's the type of athlete that you always talk about speed. You can't teach speed. You always talk about being able to throw that tight spiral. You can teach that. You can't really teach that IQ. You either have it or you don't. I mean, obviously, good teachers play a big role in it. But anytime that you have a guy that is performing well in the classroom, you can expect him to play well on the field because his mental acuity is there, and it kind of slows the game down a little bit.
And let's talk a little bit about some of the other games up in that bracket. Here you've got Whitehall taking on Batesville. That's a big-time game there. Going to be a lot of fun. Hot Springs Lakeside and Vilonia. Vilonia put up 60 points last week. Clarksville and Little Rock Christian may be a sneaky good game as well. Talking about Magnolia. Magnolia did beat Little Rock Christian this year. And then you've got Pulaski Academy and Farmington. It's always a tall task when you're having to take on the Bruins. Moving on into the 4A, in Class 4A, I always love the 4A. 4A is, I think, one of the most competitive classes that there is, and there's still a load of ball games to be played there in the 4A. Show them what they've won, folks. Mina gets to host Arkadelphia, the 4A4 champ. Beat Ozark this year. Got loads of athletes, a lot of kids to throw it to, a lot of kids to run the ball. But boy, man, you got Arkadelphia, who is 7-1 on the season. Possibly the best team in the 7-4A, gets the number 5 seed because they only played 6 ball games this year.
And that's tough. We always like to see an even slate, and it's not what we're used to seeing, where you don't have games that have been postponed or canceled. And we like to, at this point of the year, to see an 11 game across the board. And that's one thing that's throwing it off this year, when you look at who's going to get seeded where and have to play. And, that's one of the things that Mina has kind of been a downfall with. Having to draw Arkadelphia here in this round is definitely a tough one.
And Gosnell traveling to Dardanelle. I was talking to a Dardanelle coach. They've had their own COVID issues, have not had a healthy team since week 1. Ashdown and Ozark, speaking of COVID issues, Ashdown had 23 players in quarantine on Monday. And looks like that they're going to have 7 players, including 3 starters, to be quarantined on Friday. It's never good when you're having to travel to Ozark with having that many kids out.
It isn't. We've been in that boat. We saw a team that was only had 19 players out in Pottsville go to Ozark, and it was handed to them. So we know if Ashdown is playing shorthanded, Ozark knows how to make quick work of that. Ozark is a very tough ball team. They have Harper Falconberry leading the way, who's a very dangerous thrower and runner. So Ozark is a very, very dangerous 7-3 team.
Lamar, Brady James. I mean, when you think about Lamar, you think about Brady James, very good player there for Lamar. Well-coached, well-disciplined team. Traveling to Pocahontas, 8-2 on the season. This is a sneaky good game. I think there's an opportunity for Lamar to win this ball game. They've played in, I think, what is probably a tougher conference than Pocahontas has, but Pocahontas is 8-2 on the season.
They are 8-2 on the season. Their only 2 losses this year were to Blytheville, which has its ups and downs, and to Rivercrest, which hasn't seen a down part of its season all year long. Rivercrest is a very star-studded football team. Pocahontas lost to Rivercrest and to Blytheville, and those are the only 2 losses. But like you mentioned, Lamar is in a very, very tough conference where it's been spread out a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how Brady James and team can go all the way up there. Josh Jones is going to have those guys ready to go.
One of the longest trips that you can make in playoffs is going to be Blytheville traveling to Prairie Grove. Man, that's a long trip for Blytheville and a very tough Prairie Grove team that they are going to be playing.
It is. Blytheville's a very good team. They're 5-4, but they are led by their quarterback, the junior, in Jeremiah Northern, which we have seen on this show before in our Primetime Performers section. So on the season, Jeremiah Northern has passed for 1,780 yards and 15 touchdowns this fall. So we know that they have an offense that's pretty dangerous despite the 5-4 record.
Yes, and Jeremiah Northern is going to be very tough to stop. He's had some of the biggest games that you will see In Arkansas this year, big, like 400 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, 100-something yards rushing. Looking at some of the other games in the bracket, Lone Oak at Warren is a big-time ball game there. Warren started the season off slow. They've had some, I feel like we just repeat over and over COVID issues.
Right.
But they kind of got it together. Nashville has got a bye against Waldron. Elkins is go ahead.
Well, Waldron had to
they had to.
Yeah.
So that
Nashville
issue.
moves on
Right.
in. Yeah.
Nashville moves on. Elkins, taking on Bald Knob, very good game there.
I think that would be a really sneaky under the radar game.
Yes, very sneaky. Rivercrest and Pottsville, a game that we'll be at. We're going to get a chance to see Cam Turner play. We're going to get Keyshawn Scott, Elijah Bradley. Going to be a lot of firepower on that field at Rivercrest on Friday night. Monticello Gentry, another sneaky good game. There's a lot of games here that are just going to be fun to watch this week. Stuttgart Hamburg, another one that's going to have athletes all over the field. We talked about it last week. Stuttgart has an opportunity to be one of those teams that plays for a state championship in the 4A.
I think you're right. Stuttgart is the team to beat right now in 4A. Of course, you have Rivercrest, but Stuttgart, what a turnaround. These guys had a very poor season a year ago and are undefeated this year going into the first round of the playoffs. So Stuttgart has jumped over the hurdles that a lot of people didn't expect them to be able to jump over, and they have something to prove.
All right, let's move on into Class 3A. As Bill gets the graphic ready. Here we go. And Class 3A, Harding Academy is a team that you've got to take notice of. They're just a very good ball team. They're in a team that is really pushing to be a back-to-back state champions. Center Point and Rising 6 games this year. Athletes all over the field, expected to be one of the better teams in 3A. Center Point has their hands full at Rising. Cedarville, a guy that we probably need to get on this show here, Daryl Kadich.
We need to talk to Daryl Kadich. He is leading the state in rushing this season, 1,981 yards and 25 trips to the end zone. Daryl Kadich, we want to talk to you. We will be reaching out to you.
That is like Darren McFadden-like numbers there. You know, 1,981 yards, 25 touchdowns. In fact, it's better than anything McFadden did put up. Of course, the SEC is not 3A.
But the biggest question is, does Kadich have the same stiff arm
Absolutely.
that McFadden had?
I've heard
I was the victim to that stiff arm playing football for Atkins. I went up against Darren McFadden.
Yeah.
I didn't want to hit him again. Of course, that stiff arm was legit.
There you go. Moving on, Lincoln and Atkins, a game that is very sneaky. Lincoln quarterback Levi Wright has thrown for almost over 2,000 yards, or actually has 2,000 total yards and 30 touchdowns. But Atkins has some offensive firepower of their own.
That's right. We've heard of Donovan Nooner several times. He has ran for over 1,200 yards and 15 touchdowns this season. He's also very versatile, catching 25 passes for 445 yards and 6 touchdowns. But he's not the only one that Atkins can rely on.
Creed Stubbs, 36 receptions, 650 yards, and 7 touchdowns. That's coming off a season where he had like 60-something catches and 24 touchdowns last year. And he's one of the guys that they say is one of the fastest kids in the state, actually by film, if you believe it or not. He was, I guess it's Huddle. Huddle has measured his speed on film and measured him as the 4th fastest kid in the whole United States.
My goodness.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So game speed. The kid's got game speed for sure. We've also got other games in that bracket in the 3A. Before we go to 2A there, we got other games.
That up for you.
There you go.
There we go. There's the 3A back.
Other games in that bracket as Bill is working here. We've got, let's see here, Harding Academy and Smackover, a game that would have been big time, a couple years back for sure. Definitely not a first-round game. Also, Boonville and Hackett, that's an old-school rivalry game. They used to be in the same conference. several years ago. Dalloway Osceola is a couple teams that have probably met for a state championship in years past. Charleston and Mayflower, another game with a lot of athletes. Charleston's having a bounce-back season this year. Glen Rose taking on West Fork. Looking forward to that possible second-round matchup there with Charleston and Glen Rose. Two similar type of teams there. On the other side of the bracket, you got Prescott hosting Drew Central. That's a big-time game. Melbourne and Cedarville, that is a fun game to be at there. You've got Hoxie and Lakeside, Newport and Corning, Paris and Salem, and Greenland and Perryville. Tell you what, next week in 3A, it's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun, especially when you look at the bottom right of that bracket where we may have a Paris and Greenland type matchup, maybe Perryville. Paris is a very good ball team going on against a Salem team that, personally I don't think Salem really has much of a chance. But I think Paris is the team to beat there in the lower right side of that bracket.
Paris, Newport in the quarterfinals would be a lot of fun to watch. Paris is an underrated team, and they're very good this year. They, just an 8-point loss to Boonville this year. On that side of the bracket, Paris and Newport, and you got Prescott over there.
You got a McGee over there.
McGee, we saw them last year. That is one physical ball club there.
Yes, sir.
Moving on into 2A, the final bracket here as we get into quarterfinal action in 2A. We got Gurdon and Carlisle playing against each other. That's a name matchup for sure. 15, 20 years ago, that would have been a state championship type of matchup there. But probably the game of the week is Poen and Dirks. Dirks coming off a 50-0 win in the playoffs against Mountainburg.
And, of course, this is a game. These two teams have seen each other this year before. They met in Week 4 in non-conference action, and Poen won that game 21-12. So, if you look at, they've done it once, they can do it again, but it's also very difficult to beat a team twice.
Oh, for sure. And this one's at Dirks, so that's going to be something to definitely watch there. As, like you said, this is a non-conference rematch here. So, interesting game, 2 9-1 teams. You don't see that in the quarterfinal matchup very often. Very good game there. Hampton and Bigelow, another one. Hampton coming in at 6-5. Bigelow 11-0 on the season. Are they getting enough respect?
I don't think so.
At number 8 in the state?
I don't think so. 11-0 and ranked number 8 behind a 6-5 team. That who's favored. I mean, Hampton is, as Hootens has this as a 4-point ball game, and favors Hampton. I'm not sure what they're seeing. I'm not sure if Bigelow has some guys out or what. But Bigelow is a very physical ball club. You can look at what they've done in their conference, taking on some very tough ball teams within their conference, and they're undefeated.
Yes, Junction City, you never want to see them on the playoff bracket. They are traveling to McCrory. That's interesting, as Junction City usually plays home games all the way up until the semifinals. Quitman, two teams that we've seen play, Quitman and East Poinsett County. We saw East Poinsett County the very first of the year. Quitman travels to East Poinsett County. I think Quitman's got a puncher's chance in that one.
I think so. Quitman led by Will Linton, who's a very, very, very athletic guy. Very humble, too. I really enjoyed his interview last week. But Linton is very, very dynamic. I mean, he can throw it, he can pass it, he can run it. He will hurt you any way that he can. And he's got some intangibles on that team. But we've seen the East Poinsett County in action, and in the game that we saw, they were destroyed by Pottsville. And it's kind of, I look at that team thinking, how did they get to 8-3? Well, it's because Pottsville was stepping up to, stepping down to classification levels. But I think East Poinsett County, that's a long trip. There's not an easy way to get to EPC. So, I think that's a really good matchup.
Yeah, it is, for sure. And then we're going to be talking about Foreman and Magazine here in just a moment with our primetime picks. But we're going to move on to our primetime performances and performers, as Jeremiah Northern, 471 yards passing, 151 yards rushing, and 5 TDs. That's the second game that we've caught that he's had this year like that. Man, you're talking about 622 yards of total offense.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible with what Jeremiah Northern is able to do in Blytheville. This is not his first trip to our Primetime Preps leaderboard. So great job by Jeremiah Northern, just a junior. We'll see him again.
And Keylon Wells on his team, 7 receptions, 216 yards. He also had 4 tackles, an interception, and 2 touchdowns.
So, I mean, yeah, the intangibles are there. We can see where those 471 yards are passing. Almost half of them or so is going to Mr. Wells. So it's a great 1-2 punch there for Blytheville.
Owen Miller for Lake Hamilton, 23 carries, 251, 2 receptions, 26 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And we've talked about it, Bill. You don't see a lot of ground attack anymore, but Lake Hamilton, they still incorporate it.
They do. And, Owen Miller, he's able to, prime example of making it work out. Pretty good offensive numbers there.
Kyler Carmack, 3 receptions, 118 yards, and 2 touchdowns, catching the ball from Tyler Gee there at Cabot. A very good combination there for the Panthers.
The interesting thing about Carmack's stats here is it's not really eye-popping numbers until you look at, he touched the ball 3 times. 2 of them went for 6. Mm-hmm. And, that just shows that you're able to get free and make something happen. Probably a lot of those yards were yards after the catch.
And almost 40 yards a catch, by the way. Caden Elsick, 28 carries, 177, and 3 touchdowns for the Farmington Cardinal. Unfortunately for those guys, they get PA.
Yeah, and PA is walking into a wood chipper for a lot of teams. So it'd be interesting to see how this running back can perform against star-studded quality.
Moving on into our primetime performers, we got Jason Sullivan of Carlisle, 19 carries, 202, and 5 touchdowns. That's legendary type status in Carlisle.
It is. Carlisle usually has a pretty good history of, running the football, and Jason Sullivan is able to produce some big numbers there. Here's another guy that we've seen time in and day out, William Linton from Quitman. We just talked about him. Last week, 28 carries, 229 yards. Also, 11 out of 15 passes for 7 yards and 7 total touchdowns.
So we've got 2 Hamburg Lions here that accounted for 11 touchdowns. And if you saw the score, they actually scored 76 last week in their first-round victory. Brett Rice, senior quarterback, 9 of 14 passing, 212 yards and 4 touchdowns. And Armand Taylor, 23 carries, 237 and 7 touchdowns.
And that's always impressive, And what I've noticed most about this when I was looking at it is, one of these stats, Mr. Rice is taking care of things through the air, and Taylor getting it done on the ground. So it's not like in the previous slide where we had passing and a receiver. This is passing and a ball carrier. So really attacking it from both fronts.
And that's why you got 76 points on the board. Finally, here we'll get to our primetime picks as we wrap up this week, second week of playoffs here in the state of Arkansas. Moving into the 6A, we've got Little Rock Parkview and Sylvan Hills. This one is one that you and I were split on, Bill. I took Sylvan Hills, you take Parkview, and I don't know who's going to win.
It's a good game. I mean, when you face it, this is number 4 versus number 3. Parkview, Landon Rogers, that's all we got to say. Of course, he's missing Utley. But Landon Rogers, the quarterback commit for the University of Arkansas, he's leading the way for the Patriots. The Patriots 8-1 on the season. We were there for their only loss, which fell to Benton. And so that was a very good game, and they just kind of showcased everything they've had since then. Sylvan Hills, I would have to say, is probably one of the more quiet 8-3 teams in the state.
Yeah, and the winner of this game, my prediction is they get Greenwood in the state finals. That's my prediction. Win at Maumelle at Win. We've got both have Win. This is a sneaky good game here, though. I definitely could see Maumelle having a chance to win this one.
I think Maumelle could. They are on a 4-game win streak. They were able to overcome Whitehall, Little Rock Hall, Nuttleton, and Watson Chapel. Hootens has that as a combined score of 118-59. Maumelle's a 6-2 ball club that looks very, very dangerous. But, when they are unbeaten, 9-0, ranked number 2 in the state, they do have a touchdown advantage by Hootens Arkansas football in this game. I think that's going to be a big one, and we both take Win.
Texarkana and Morrilton is a team or game that we talked about, and we're both taking Morrilton in this one. Man, I tell you what, Morrilton has played very well since the loss to Russellville, really since their non-conference slate. They are 1 point away from winning the 5A West this year against Harrison. They win that ball game. They win the West. We like Morrilton in this ball game. Texarkana having to travel to Morrilton is not going to be an easy task.
Definitely not. Of course, we mentioned earlier, Morrilton wins at least one game usually in the postseason that you don't expect them to win, and this might be the one.
Moving on, Ashdown at Ozark. This one would be a little harder to pick if Ashdown wasn't missing starters. They may end up winning the ball game, but as we read before, they're going to be missing some players and some starters, and you just don't want to do that. You want to be full strength when you travel to Ozark.
And the key stat that I look at in this matchup is Ozark's 3 losses this season. All of those have came to teams that have went on to win their conference championships. So they have 3 quality losses is what that tells me. Oh,
yeah, a very good team there at Ozark. And finally, we're split here at Foreman and Magazine. The common opponent for these two is Hector. They both played Hector very tough, very close. I mean, Hector actually had both teams beat at one point or another. But Magazine or Hector fell to Magazine in a comeback loss, and then got beat by Foreman 32-26 last week. I'm taking the Gators. You're taking Magazine.
I'm going to take the Rattlers. I think Rattlers at 9-2 on the season. Foreman may have played 10 games, but Magazine, maybe it's just the kind of knee-jerk reaction when I see Magazine on the schedule. I'm used to Magazine always coming out on top. So we know that Magazine is always well coached, and I think that's the case here. I think Foreman, to be honest with you, I was surprised that they beat Hector with the physical team that Hector has. I saw Hector and Quitman and Persman, and I was impressed with Hector and the way that they were popping those pads. They played very physical, and so I thought, okay, well, they're going down to Foreman to take on these Bulldogs, or rather the Gators, I should say. And I didn't expect Hector to lose that game, and so I still. Maybe I'm sleeping on Foreman here, but give me Magazine.
It's going to be a good game there at Magazine as we wrap up this 8th episode, I believe, of Primetime Preps. It's been good. We've had 8 weeks in the studio. Now things change a little bit here. We're probably going to have a condensed version of Primetime Preps next week as Thanksgiving week is upon us. We don't want to not have Primetime Preps because we're in the middle of the playoffs. But we've got things going on, and so Bill is moving into a new place.
But we hope to rebuild everything that we have around us, all the lights and studio equipment. We hope to rebuild that at my new location and hopefully to the general watcher.
Absolutely. Hopefully you won't know a whole lot of difference, maybe even new and improved by the time it's all said and done.
That's right.
So anyway, again, go ahead and give us a 5-star review on our podcast. Make sure that you go to the Arkansas Sports Network here, right there, on Facebook. Like us. Also want to hit that line, Arkansas. Go like that page as we're everywhere, Bill. We're everywhere here on Primetime Preps. So, so long for this 8th episode of Primetime Preps. I'm Brad. He's Bill. We'll talk to you soon.